Welcome everyone to another episode of Price Targets with your host Bitcoin Jack. Welcome back. It's Monday. Things are not looking particularly bullish at all. We're going to be looking and reviewing my updated thoughts on that. It's pretty much going to be the same as last week. ETH doesn't look too great. I am spot long ETH, but I'm questioning whether I'm going to drop the trade ID and close at a smaller loss than where my stop loss is currently. And then Bitcoin is just not, reacting to the levels that I want to see. Maybe it's going to do something funny by the end of the day today, but for now it's just looking as if we're going to fulfill the scenario we saw last week. Your attention first for Prime XBT. They're sponsoring this content. They're making it possible, and they have a little offer for you where you get 50% deposit bonus on your first deposit up to 0.5 BTC. So thank you, Prime, for that generosity. And there's some conditions that apply, so make sure you're aware of those. Thank you, Prime. And let's dive into the Bitcoin chart. Technically, we're still within the weekly resistance here, and then the weekly demand down here. What we talked about last week was, the range having some kind of completion by sweeping the range low here and the range high up here, and then closing back inside the range. So that was pretty bearish. Then this was arguably a level to get some interest if you want to go long, and this was too. The RR, the risk to reward on this setup here is pretty shitty because in my opinion, the invalidation would go all the way down here, and your target would be up here. So that was like 2R setup, which I generally don't like to take, especially not on margin. And then after we had the reaction yesterday on the green level, this just looks shit, right? Maybe we can look at it from the 4 hour. The level did its job, got rejected up here, and just started to sell down further. So technically, this just looks like shit to me. There's no way on earth I'm gonna long this before anything bullish shows up. And generally, I like to think about what are the things that I want to see to become bullish. And at this point, I want to see these lows swept at least into the 20k, like 25 to 28. Apologies, 25 to 20, 28k region down here, and then maybe, if we draw this line up here, and let's just, hypothetically, let's say this happens, then you could argue that once we close back inside the range, that it might be a bullish setup. So back above here, and then maybe get some interest as we retest the range low. Until then, I'm not even, I'm not gonna be bidding this, honestly. I'm not gonna try and be a hero there. If we get back to the daily, there is still a lot of, empty space below us, and it's quite a sizey consolidation already now. So there's quite some volume that has been traded here. If this is going to sell off, bidding here is just not the wise thing to do. What would be the wise thing to do is wait for the reclaim. But this could just start puking. Maybe find support around 25k. Maybe even get all the way down to 20 or even lower. So if you're going to be bidding like blindly, it's just wise to get stink bits in and then make sure that you're going to be safe. At that point, you're going to be buying Bitcoin at quite a sizey discount. So it just starts to make it does make sense to start scaling into spot once we get into this region, and then in my opinion it's wise to get some patience on the margin longs, and there's no reason to FOMO into this, right? ETH, well, it's kind of doing the shitty thing that we talked about last week. So essentially my bits have been filled in this region here, and it's not really giving the bounce, although, you know, this is not invalidated yet. In my opinion, the invalidation is below the wick here, but this just doesn't look like the direction that I wanted, right? So I'm going to wait for the daily. Ideally the daily just manages to at least close above the level here. If not, I'm probably going to cut it, and then if it does move back above here, then, you know, maybe reopen my position and still aim for the target up here. If that doesn't happen, then I do think that this is going to sell off, sweep the lows here, see a little kind of bounce, and then you know, it could, I don't know what's going to happen from there. But I'm going to be managing my risk if this just closes like shit. Get back into my position if it does kind of like recover from looking like shit, and otherwise I do think it's, you know, we're going to be selling off further down. I'm going to be patient to pick it back up. I mean, same kind of story for Litecoin. We talked about it. Let me clean up a few of the squigglies here and take a sip of coffee. But it does look like this is at least going to come down into the 3600 sat region. Well, not 3600 sats, but 0.00, like 360k sats. Before I'm interested at all. And then, you know, I mean, yes, it could turn around here. It kind of looks like a little bit the same like ETH, you know, with a tiny consolidation up here, then the big capitulation that happened a couple of weeks ago, and then a retest of that level. It's very similar, you know, tiny consolidation, decapitulation, and then retesting the level here. So, you know, essentially if they both do the same thing here and start to look good, that's, you know, a promising thing. And I'd still be cautious about becoming really bullish, but some kind of a relief bounce here would then make sense. Same for LTC. Question is, you know, with Bitcoin looking like garbage in my opinion, if there's a lot of alpha in that play. So that's another thing to consider in this scenario, whether you should even consider getting long on these BTC ratios. And there's another reason why I'm kind of doubting my play on ETH. So the big question will be, do you make more sats being in cash than being in ETH BTC? And, you know, honestly, it just doesn't look too great from here. Same for LTC, and then Bitcoin itself, you know, just looks ready to puke. We talked about the S&P 500 last week, so let me quickly pick that chart up, about this little deviation being bearish. So, you know, there's some tail risk here too. If this, you know, somehow, as the whole economy is reopening, people are going to spend their money elsewhere. I don't know. If the economy closing down caused everyone to speculate on things like Bitcoin, crypto, other assets, commodities went up pretty madly, then if the opposite happens, it's only logical that we see some kind of a breather on those assets that have been pumped intensely. And you know, there's going to be a lot of printing still going on into this year and into next year before the Fed is going to start tapering the rates. but still, I do think, there's some reverse repelling going on, which is essentially withdrawing money that was previously pumped into the markets. So maybe there's just going to be an overall little, bit of a reset, and Bitcoin is just going to follow as hard or even harder. Like even gold puked pretty badly. Some old drawings, but even gold puked pretty badly here. So everything is gonna puke if the market goes risk off, and Bitcoin already puked quite a lot. Gold already did, recover, lose a lot of its gains that it made previously, and then, silver kind of looks, silver actually doesn't look that bad, but still, it's, this is a deviation. So if we draw this up, that's the deviation right there, and then this kind of, the range region high. It got retested here, so maybe this is gonna, get to those lows here, and there's quite a gap that was left behind here too. So everything just looks a little bit shaky. So as long as everything looks a little bit shaky, I think it's just, important to move slowly. Up here, old drawing of the dollar. Quite a bit of a bounce here too. If the dollar just gets rejected here and then comes down, maybe that's gonna, fire up some bullishness on the markets. But as long as the dollar is gonna come up here, I think that the correlation between the dollar and legacy markets will, remain existing. So I hope that makes sense. Kind of a little bit of a peek into my updated thoughts on the market, and I do not wish for this kind of shit to happen, but I would not, I would not be surprised if it does happen. I think that's it. I'm gonna keep an eye on the market and hopefully update you on Wednesday with everything that we talked about today, and make new plans from there. Cheers.